Okay, Mom, you ready to start? You can read it. Are you ready yet?
I don't know. What should I do?
Can you take off your glasses?
No, I can't.
I just want to see you a second without your glasses,
Oh,
okay?
it must look terrible.
Huh?
Must look terrible.
Why?
All the bags on there.
Huh?
All the bags on there. I can't hide my feelings.
Huh?
Today was a bad day for me.
Why?
All these crazy things.
What crazy things?
It's exciting next to it. When I have something I can hide it.
So what happened next door?
No, I called up Tapper, he's a consular. He said he's gonna Monday here. First thing he will call. Send out the map. But he said he's allowed to have 2 drivers. Long as they're not on our property.
Mm-hmm. You take off your glasses just once more? Take off your glasses once more?
Not good.
Huh?
I look very bad without glasses.
Why you say that?
Because I look bad, that's all. It's like a wrinkle on my...
Turn to your left. Turn to your right. Huh?
I have to always proper so you don't see my
You what?
face that I'll be wrinkled.
Ooh.
My teeth is in. I don't look good.
What?
Don't make it too close. My teeth is in because it's shrunk. The gum.
Okay. Why don't you start reading what you have there?
What do you want me to ask you? Nothing?
Just read what you have. And we'll take it from there.
Did you ever read this before?
No.
Oh. What do you want to know?
Go ahead, just read it.
You want to know where I used to live?
Well, where were you born?
Alright. Okay. Born Olga Sava. Mother is Sternberg Sarina. Father is Sabo Samuel. And we used to live 241 Feuza.
How do you remember the number so well?
Well, what could you forget? Will you forget?
What?
You don't remember where you used to...
Well, no, 1995 Braille or something?
Yeah, and 37 West Walnut, you won't remember? My Jewish name is Friday. My mother's name is Hayasara.
Father's name?
I was born in Margita. My mother was born in Margita. My father is Shmuel Ben Kiva.
So what's the first thing you remember from when you were very little? What's the first thing you remember from being very young?
Very young?
Yeah, what's the first memory you have?
Me.
Everybody?
Everybody. I was Olgitsa.
The youngest?
Youngest. I was the youngest of 6 children. Everybody loved me, and I used to love everybody, even the gypsy. I used to come always under the... I always had to love somebody. Everybody was busy and the gypsy was there, then I went under the gypsy skirt. They used to wear all those...
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were you?
Huh?
How old?
How old? I was sucking my thumb till I was 11.
No, when you went under the gypsy skirt, how old were you?
Who knows? Who must have been? 10, 9. What do I know?
No, what do you remember?
I got the love, but I couldn't get it.
But what do you remember, like when you were 3 or 4 or 5 years old? Do you remember anything?
No.
Nothing? You don't remember?
Not yet, no. Oh, well, I remember, sure.
What do you remember?
When I went to kindergarten with Joe, we were supposed to go, it was right across the street.
Joe is your brother, Joe?
Joe, my brother, right across the street. And Joe said, Olga, let's not go to kindergarten. Come on, we'll play. And we was
How old was he? How old was he?
Well, I must have been like 5.
And he was 7?
He's 7. He said,
what did he say?
Let's not play. Let's not go, we'll play. And then we used to, it was springtime. You know, and he used to play with the little chicken. We used to have the little chicken, the little ducks, you know, those beautiful little yellow ducks.
Right.
And I used to make nice for them. but Joe went and choked them.
Yeah.
And then they were choking. Then he
we
blow
resuscitated
air in
them.
them,
Yeah.
and then for hours we was playing like that. I felt sorry for the animal, but then when I saw that Joe, bring him back to life, and then I don't know, used to be a big well, a big
Well,
an open well where they used to, not for drinking water, that they used
Right.
for the animals to bring up water like this. And when you bring up water, you used to have like frogs. We used to play with the frogs. We used to do things like that. That's how they went back. And I used to make from corn. I went with Sarah and Danny at their farm in Cleveland. From corn, we used to make like little dolls. All those things that I saw on the farm, we used to do. That's how we spend the time. I didn't like to go because we used to have a little black apron. That was our uniform. And instead of washing it, they used to clean it up always with vinegar.
Right.
But only Jewish girls could afford it.
Right. So you had a uniform?
Not uniform. They used to have cute little black pleated apron. And they used to clean it with vinegar. So when we went to school, they used to call it vinegar. So it started there already. I was insulted.
Insulted by what?
That they called me names. And they called me Shamu or God, so I didn't like to go. It started already in kindergarten.
That what? They called you names?
Yeah. And Chinese, they used to call me Chinese because my eyes was...
Well, Chinese, let's see your eyes.
Oh, that time Chinese was a big...
Why?
Embarrassing if
Why?
you couldn't call you anything worse than Chinese.
Why?
Because Chinese was the yellow man.
Let's see your eyes. Oh, take off your glasses, let's see your eyes.
Not Chinese anymore. Almost nothing now.
Huh?
Right now it's nothing anymore, my eyes.
No? Not Chinese?
No. It used to be like this. And I was young. It used to be like that.
Now?
And they used to go like this for the Chinese.
And now?
Now it's not Chinese. The whole face changed with the teeth, with the gum shrinking, with the bone shrinking. Alright, what do you want to do? Let's get over it.
I'm trying turning on the light. Okay, let's go on. Let's keep on going.
Alright, so what do you want me to
Well, you were just talking about what they called you, so you didn't like school afterwards?
do? No.
Huh?
Can I say that I failed in school?
I don't know. Did you?
Not nice. I did.
What
It
grade?
was in first grade. Because they called me name. I just was very sensitive. So I didn't like it. I didn't like to go to school. My head wasn't there.
So you couldn't do well in school because of that?
No. And they used to didn't do well, and they used to beat us with the, how they call the naadpatsa, the stick with the...
Well, they did that for everybody, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
So you got it more?
Jews, yeah. I had a teacher in the 3rd grade who was really bad. He used to put me on his lap and used to hit my thumb till I fished in my pen a lot of times. Yeah. And nail down on that's where I learned to nail down. Nail down on corn. They put down corn and nail down. And every morning when we started first grade, we had to go to church.
Right.
And I just couldn't understand it, why I have to go to church. We used to go in the afternoon to the Shai had to learn, and in the morning the school started with the prayer.
Right.
I still know the prayer. It wasn't Catholic, it was Evangelist, There was no Yasala Pundra there, but there was no cross in the church. But we had to go, all the Jewish kids had to go, and I didn't like to go, and I didn't understand it. How come I go there and I understand what they're praying, and I'm reading Hebrew and I don't know what I'm saying. I wanted to always understand. When I went to the Shaihat, I wanted to understand what I'm saying. And for that I used to get...
Because you wanted Hungarian translation, and they wanted
for
you just
that
to
I
read.
got pinching on the face like this. The Shaihat used to put me to the corner. Alright, I do it. I do it. Oh, what do you do for that?
It's alright, but the bed.
I just want to sit down because
You mind, Derek?
Go ahead.
Yeah? Alright, stop it for tonight.
Yeah, do you want to hold this? You want to be the controller?
No, you go ahead.
You want to hold this, Daddy?
Level.
You hold it.
What's your hold?
You were talking about how you didn't like school and how they called you a dirty Jew?
Yes.
How come you didn't put on television?
What for?
Don't need it. The voice is good. I don't like it.
No, no.
Later I'll put it. Let's see, on the 6th grade, when we was in the 5th and 6th grade. Well,
Yeah.
my glasses.
Take it off, yeah.
No.
Because it shines, reflection
Oh.
shines in the
In
television.
the 5th and 6th grade.
Right.
And like 4th grade.
Uh-huh.
Then the teacher, it started to be very bad.
Don't
And
talk
then
with
the
the hands.
teacher, we
No,
had a
it's good, it's
teacher
good
who
with the
was
hands.
head of
Good.
all the teachers.
Mhm.
I forgot what they called them, you know.
Right.
All the teachers from Hansida, you know.
Right.
He used to, and he heard a speech.
Mhm.
He says, all the Jews in World War I pulled themselves out from the war, and they were hiding and they didn't go to fight for the country. The Fitzgerald, the Jewish Fitzgerald, that's why he said it. And here it was my uncle, my cousin's mother, father, and husband who died in that war.
Fighting for the country.
Fighting for the country and left 2 children,
Right.
you know, and they were widowed. And this teacher used to drink that. They used to have like a bar,
Yeah.
Korchma they call it in Hansida.
So she knew it.
And, well, no, we all knew
Yeah,
that. She
yeah.
suffered all her life. They were young widows,
Right.
you know, left with children. That's why her son, my cousin, was able to go, my cousin's son, was able to go to university because he was a widow's son,
Yes.
you know, war widow's son. And here I stand up and I said, Batrekterur, yeah, that was his name.
How old were
Batrekterur.
you? How old were you?
I must have been like 12 years old, yeah, because I said, Batrekterur, where was my cousin? Husband.
All the way down, Daddy. All the way down.
No.
It's not good.
I said, where was my cousin? This is better enough to go. I said, where was my cousin husband? Where was Anush's father? And I don't know. I don't know his husband. Said her husband, their husband was fighting in a war, died. They never come back. And then I ran out from school and I ran to my cousin's house. And I said, Hermione, tessék megmondani, please tell rector úr, hol van a te férjed és a te apád, you know? So I really, you know,
which means what? Which means what?
Where is your husband? And where is your father? They died for the war, you know?
So meanwhile, did they punish you or anything when you spoke up?
Yeah, it's I don't know, but it was terrible to be a child, you know. It's and every time you went to school, they always talked about Romania, and I used to go with
how bad they were,
how bad the Romanians are,
Right.
and I used to go to Romania visit my grandparents, and everything was so nice, and everybody was nice. Actually, the Romanian people were very nice to the last minute, and you know, for a child like that, I imagine today I would be a rebel or something, you know. I was, you know, in my own way,
Today
I
you
was
would
like
be
fighting it. Yeah?
Today you'd be, what? You'd be rebel? What do you mean you'd be?
No, like today, kids who are rebelling against, like they don't want pollution and they don't want,
Yes.
in my way, I think I
We're
stand up
rebelling.
for my right.
Most didn't do that in Hungary.
Most people was afraid to do it, or they wouldn't do it. And this man, this teacher used to go to my cousin's house all the time and drinking there, and they used to treat him and respect him, like, because he was together with my cousin's husband.
And meanwhile, he said
He said that, he hold a speech there for all the students that the Jews pulled themselves out from the war. In Hungarian, he said, all the Jewish ficsörök kihúzták magukat from the war. They pulled them out from themselves out from the war.
Right.
Yeah,
Keep on reading,
all right,
reading
okay.
You were telling me that you were youngest of 6 children.
Yeah, I was youngest of 6 children. I was loved by everyone.
And you used to practice on ducks with your brother.
No, I was looking for more affection many times. I was hiding under the layers of a gypsy skirt. But Filsha came when
What kind of gypsy was it? How they had a lot of gypsies there?
Oh yeah, they used to come in Shabbos to light the stove in the morning, and do things, painting the house, inside, outside, it was the life.
What's your favorite memory from that time? What's your favorite time from that time?
Well,
It's something you may remember with a smile. What do you? Friends, family.
Purim was the best.
Purim?
Purim until my father died. That was the best thing
How
because
old
I
were
used to get Purim gear from my cousin Ignaz. He went to Israel. I never had a chance to meet him. Just before Joe went, he passed away. And he had no children, and he had money. And Purim I used to get it from my cousins, from everywhere money. That was present time. And we used to play a lot with my friends.
What did you like when he gave you the money, or what did you like?
No, I liked them anyway, but when they gave us money, Purim was the
What did you do with the money when you What did you do with
Probably bought clothes or something.
Clothes?
Nice clothes. Yeah.
Candy? What?
No candy. We had candy in the store. I was the
you had
best
your own
customer.
store.
I was the best customer for the candy. I used to love the candy filled with rum.
With rum?
Rum. I used to love it. My mother used to tell that I was the best customer. Alright.
Shut it up.
No, keep on dancing.
Alright, so let's see what.
You can shut her off.
These things now.
Go ahead.
I must tell you another incident when Joe was about 5th grade coming home from school. One boy who used to be his friend he used to be his friend, and it was already anti-Semitism and he called him stinking Jew. So Joe was very upset about it and he picked up on the street like a 10-inch nail and he hammered it with a stone into his head. The boy was, my people came and said,
Joe put a nail in the guy's head. In the middle of his head? Where in his head?
In his head.
Right, in the
top of his head,
right,
yes.
big one.
So
How long was the nail? This long?
About 10 inch.
Yeah,
about this way.
Yeah.
And people was running that Joe.
A thick nail or a thin nail?
A big thick nail what they put in like fence.
Yeah.
A big heavy fence. And then people was running to our house to tell my mother that Joe killed this guy.
Did he die?
This boy. No, and they bring him to our house. And
the boy. How old was
this
the boy?
The boy also was 5th grade.
Yeah.
But before they were very good friends because I don't know, they were good friends. And suddenly called him stinking Jew. And just said, me Jew, picked up the nail and picked up a stone and he hammered it in his head. And they pulled the boy to my house and it was already anti-Semitism. He was afraid what will happen. So my mother used to help people all the time. Anyway, if somebody was hurt or sick, they always came to my mother because we always had aspirin. Was a big thing in Hansida. So my mother always had some kind of medication. And my mother took a bowl of vinegar, a whole bunch of vinegar, and washed out the boy's head.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he had. I don't think she had cotton.
Right.
And they filled a towel, white towel, put on the head, and the bleeding stopped. And we was afraid, my mother, I remember, and everybody was afraid that the boy will be killed, will die, that what will happen to
You
us.
saw the boy? You saw him?
Yeah, sure. I remember him like today. We have the picture of him, what Joe brought, the school picture. And it's healed up. I don't know what happened after, but it's, the vinegar did a good job.
Sterilized.
Yeah.
So he didn't
die.
He
didn't die or didn't get infection. He healed up.
Did he change? I mean, his behavior changed at all?
No, they become friends after because, I don't know, they used to have family in America too and somehow, the parent was a pretty decent guy.
You had friends? You had friends at the time?
Not between the goyim. I never used to be friendly
Jewish
with them.
friends?
Jewish like Hasbushka, it's Jews in Israel. And
you had friends your
not
own
too
age?
many. Yeah, my own age, a few of them, the better goyim. But I never used to.
Were the goyim your enemies? If they were enemies among the goyim?
Not everybody that time. Later they became.
But I mean, if they gave you trouble, like anybody who gave trouble at school? Or
No, I don't know.
So what do you miss? What do you miss most from that time? What do you miss? We're looking back.
I don't miss nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Why not?
And we
your
used
parents,
to have.
Your parents.
Well, that's the only thing. So you can't bring that back. I have to make the best of them.
But your mother, what did your mother tell you when she would talk to you? What would she tell you?
Oh well, every Shabbos every Shabbos afternoon she was reading the Tzanarana. And she wanted, Olga, I wanted to go to play. And she says, no, you listen to me. And she used to read books, yokai books. She used to read and used to tell me stories. You know, she used to like to read.
She told you in Hungarian, right?
Hungarian, sure.
So
used to tell me, but I never liked to sit and listen. I had no page. I wanted always just, I was very playful.
What did you like to do play?
I wanted to play ball all the time.
Ball
Ball and hopscotch.
By yourself?
No, with my friends.
Jewish friends?
Yeah, with my Jewish friend. We used to do, you come to my house and I go to your house, and that's how we went to all day on, till late at night before we went to sleep. I walk you home and you walk me home. And we used to walk to the forest and pick flowers and pick the sour leaves, and we always find something.
Did you have a favorite brother or sister?
Huh?
Did you have a favorite brother or sister? Anyone you liked?
I like them all. I always liked
for different
everybody.
things, like one for playing and one for
Oh, brother?
a sister.
Well, Joe, we used to play, but Joe used to suffer a lot because of me.
Why?
Because I did all the things I used to take on the sour cream from the top,
The
and
barrel.
then they blamed
And you thought he did
they
it.
blamed Joe.
And you got punished.
Then I used to do things, and then Joe got punished. I always used to
And you never said you did it?
scream, cry, and Joe always used to be Joe's fault.
And you never used to say you did it?
Huh?
You never said you did it?
No.
So were you the favorite of someone else's?
Huh? I was a favorite of
Everybody.
everybody in the family too, and in my, cousins and everybody. I always was their favorite. My older sisters, they always went to help my grandma. They stayed there every day.
In Margita.
Margita,
in-
take care of grandma. They
Margita
were
was-
older people.
Margita was in Romania.
Yeah.
What was your Hebrew name? Your mother called you by your Hebrew name or by your Hungarian name?
No, Olga. I was called Olga.
Your Hebrew name?
My grandma called me Friday.
Friedel. That's
Yeah,
your Hebrew
that's
name.
yeah.
Okay.
Alright. I really don't have any pleasant memories about Hungary, even before the Germans came in. Someday you boys want to go to visit Hungary, just let them know that you really care for the Jewish cemeteries. They should not destroy. In Hensida, I have my father's grave, grandparents, great-grandparents, uncle passed away before the war. They really have, beautiful, we have some pictures. They really have the most beautiful black granite, really tall, My mother always wanted to move away from Hensida. My father always said, I was born here, my grandfather was born here, my great-grandfather was born here, I want to die here. He died about 1938 when I was 12 years old. And that was a very sad time for me, because when it came, you had to say Yisro. I was the only one who stayed in the shul to say Yisro, only young child. Everybody has the father and mother, so it's really
You used to bring medicine for your father?
Yeah, and I have this here,
Okay.
so I get to it. Maybe I go. Yes, I used to, my father was a sick man. Long as I remember, he always was very sick. He had trouble with his stomach, and later, that's when they said he had stomach cancer. Not stomach, bone marrow cancer. They wanted to operate on him when he was sick, but he didn't want to. Once he went to the hospital in Berkeley, and he didn't want to go because they gave him an injection. He went to this doctor, and from this injection, he got some kind of a big bump on his body all over. And it's not just for lung canning, he had a son. And same thing happened to him, went to the same doctor. And yeah, and it was something this doctor injected, but they got like big boils. That's what it looked like, all over in the body. So my father didn't want to go near the hospital, so that's why he had to suffer. They wanted to operate.
So you brought medicine to.
And a lot of times he was sick in the middle of the night. We didn't have medicine already, and we didn't have a drugstore in our village, Hensida. We didn't have drugstore.
Small village.
A small village.
How
And
many
the
people? How many people
village,
live there?
I really don't know.
10 families.
Jewish.
Jewish.
10 Jewish families, yeah. The rest of them was peasants.
Mhm.
And other village was Gaborian.
Mhm.
That's what they call it. And there they had a drugstore. But to walk to the drugstore, to walk there, had to go for the forest. And many times, I must have been about 8, 10 years old.
Mhm.
Nobody was home. I was the only child home. And they told me to go middle of the night to like 10 o'clock at night or something to run to the drugstore. And first of all, when you go in a drugstore in Europe, it smells like
It was open at late at night?
you knock on the door and they open the
It's like
door.
a house.
Yeah, in the house, they next to the house they had this
Right.
what they call it, the drugstore in Hungarian.
I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, anyway, they only sell drugs.
Right.
So when you walk into this, you get really scared for a child alone. That smell is like it's a terrible,
Overpowering,
yeah, already overpowering. But I still remember I used to go middle of the night, like 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, and the sun was shining, and I was running. The moon was shining, and I was looking back, and I see my shadow, and I always heard something going through the forest. I used to look back, used to look like the moon is following me, you know, the bright moon,
So what did you do?
summertime or something. I used to run all the way there.
How far was it?
Must have been 2 kilometers. Yeah, but it's through the forest for a child, you know. Here at 12 years old or 14 years old, he is a grown-up. There I was very attached to the family. We wasn't so independent like here at 12 years old, not scared from nothing. And
Still scared. Yeah, still scared.
I guess it's still scared, but it's
a bit different.
So I remember that.
Hello.
Alright. In 1940, the situation became from bad to worse. In our general store, we wasn't allowed to sell sugar, salt, or necessary items. So my mother was stuffing goose and was growing silkworm, what I used to have to pick the leaves for the silkworm. And I was making Angora wool, spinning with the hand. If you ever see them in the museum, that's what it is. I used to do it myself. I went to learn to sew to Margita for 2 years. In 1942, went up to Budapest. I find a job as a dressmaker with my brother Joe. He helped me, and this way I was able to have the bare necessities. Like we had to decide if you should buy a pair of stockings or go to a theater. But everywhere we went, Blackguard was active. My brother Lotzi already was away in the army. Later in forced labor, whom we really loved, never saw him again. Word came that he was frozen to death somewhere in Kiev, Russia. But before he went, we went to visit him, and I remember he was in Yugoslavia, and with Joe we went.
What do you mean? What do you mean you went to visit him?
We went to visit him before they took him away to Russia. Me and Joe went to visit him from Budapest. It wasn't far from here, there, and the people was very nice to them there in Yugoslavia. They give them food and they gave us food to do it. And we said to Lotzi when we said goodbye, he says, "Don't worry, tell mommy that I go to see the world. Everything will be alright." You know? And in 1940, that we never seen him before, after. In 1943, the situation really was unbearable. So went back to Hansida to be with my dear mother.
Who went back?
I went back to Hansida to be with my mom. And my mother was home alone, you know, all that time. But she always wanted me to go to the city because to meet Jewish people and be between Jewish people. Yes, culture. It's hurt her very much that we grow up in a village.
Your other sisters went to the city?
My sister used to be by taking care of my grandma in Margita. Zelda, they always took like a year was Zelda, then another year Irma. First was Herman and Zelda and then Ilus. My sister, when you see the 25th anniversary picture, she was crying because she knew she gonna stay there.
Let's take a look.
We'll go back to
Let's take a look.
Okay, turn it off, please.
See, this is the 25th wedding anniversary for my grandparents. You see Irma here and Zelda here. Zelda is happy that he's gone, and here is Zelda. And Zelda is happy he's going home. But I had my sister Ilus here, and they erased her because she was crying because she will stay with the grandparents there for 2 years. You know, for Romania you had to have a passport. You not always could come home. It wasn't like here that you could go and come when you could see.
So just show, who is who there? Who is your mother?
This is my mother.
Where?
Mother. Here,
Right, now, hold it straight, please. Okay.
She's sad because she knows that she has to leave Ilus there with my grandparents. I mean, you know, it's nice that they're taken care of, but she was sad because she couldn't go too often. First of all, not money, and not enough money. It cost a lot of money to go that time, and it's not always. They were always enemies. The Hungarians, Romanian.
Your father? Where's your father there? Where's your father?
My father probably was home with me.
Okay, your
These
grandfather?
Are my grandmother, grandfather Sternberg.
Yeah.
And this is, if you
and
remember.
And the people in the picture in the back?
In the back, this is, here is Shani's father.
Right.
And this is Jula, you remember from Washington. Jula's father. This was Jakob here. This was Jakob. This was Moritz, and this is Jakob. This is Moritz's wife, Jakob's wife, and this is Moritz Bacic's wife. And this is my cousin Shani. Where is cousin Shani? This is cousin Shani, who I was very close.
Right.
He died in Los Angeles, and this is his brother Imi, who also was killed in Auschwitz, and their mother was expecting the third son, who also was killed in Auschwitz. And this flowers, Elonini,
sent from America.
Sent from America, yes. All right, maybe you should. 25th wedding anniversary for my grandparents.
The other one was the 50th that you
showed
before.
The other one was, I made a mistake, it was the 25th wedding anniversary.
50th, that was the 25th? That was the 50th.
Yes, this is the 25th
and that's the 25th,
anniversary for my Sternberg grandparents. My mother, and the black top is Elonini.
Can you please point to it?
Here is Elonini, here is my mother, and here is Uncle Shamu. You remember him from Chicago. He was the one who, the First World War was in Russia for prisoners, and through China he came to America. And
the little boy over there?
This is my uncle Jakob. His son lives right now, Jula, in Washington, and this is my uncle Maurice, my favorite uncle.
And what happened with him later on in?
Later on in Auschwitz he was killed.
What happened? Did he throw you?
But I met him in Auschwitz, and he was throwing bread for me. Yeah.
He saw you, and
he saw me, and every time he went, he was pulling the wagon with from the toilets, whatever.
But he gave you his own food.
And all the time he used to throw bread for me.
And how did you know
I
it was him?
wasn't able to talk to him because we recognized him, and he said he called me Olga. Yeah, all right. In 1943, when I came back to Hansida, that time already Margita became Hungary, and my brother-in-law was in forced labor in Russia, and my sister Ilona came home with her 2 years old Jewish, 2 years old small baby boy, and her husband came back from Russia. They let him home. He was the one who saw Latsi, my brother, in Kiev frozen. He couldn't meet my brother. And was so bad already many times at night. The windows was broken, and the black guard was singing and yelling all the time. They were drunk, and when they wasn't drunk, they also was yelling and singing. I still remember the song what they were singing.
What was
But in English goes like this: "Run you to Palestine." The song went like this: "Run you to Palestine. We don't need Democrats. Marxists we don't need."
We don't need Democrats?
Yeah, I know Hungarian how it says. Szalai zsidó Palesztinába, nincs szükségünk demokratákra, and bang, the window was broken. They throw stones with these songs.
Go Jews to Palestine, we don't need Democrats?
Yeah, we don't need Democrats, and you Jew run to Palestine. We wasn't.
Why Democrats? Why do I understand what's wrong with being a Democrat?
I don't know. Probably they meant communists, but they called us Democrats.
They weren't very
That
smart.
was the song, but Zelda wanted to go to Palestine and couldn't go to Palestine.
She wanted to go?
Of course, she was doing everything. That was a bigger thing. And the gypsies became against us. You know, they used to come around and say, "I am not gypsy, but still not a Jew."
I am a gypsy, still not a Jew.
Yeah, but not a Jew, like he's better than a Jew. And our hand was tied. I don't like it when people say, "How come you went like a lamb?" It really bothers me. But our hand was tied. We couldn't run. We had no country to call around. No money, no help from the people who had. We had the family very well-to-do. They were burning the dollars during
Right.
just before they took us away to Auschwitz or the ghetto. Like when Zelda wanted to come, Zelda would have an easier time to go to Palestine or to America if she had money. And these people says, "How could you leave your mother and your sisters here? Serena, how could you let your daughter go to America or Palestine or go up to Budapest to look for a place to going away?" And instead of helping, they had dollars, they were burning them, and they were hiding under in the garden someplace. That's what they did, but they didn't help people to escape. They didn't help their own children, but luckily some of us.
What do you mean they didn't help their own children?
They didn't send them away either. That would be the right thing for them. They had a lot of money to send their children. With money you could do in 1943.
Where could they send them?
It was hard, but you could send them to Palestine or to France or somewhere. But
Why didn't they do that?
And because they didn't believe that things will happen.
That would happen to the Polish or the other.
Yeah, but that happened to
Jews.
the Polish Jew because the Polish Jew was cheating the government. They wasn't good Jews. That's what the Hungarian Jew. That's what they thought. Not my parents, not my mother, but some of the Jews thought that the Hungarian Jews are better. They so good with the country.
It would never happen there.
Never happened there. Same thing with the Germans. You know, the Germans also thought never would happen to them.
It should happen there, wouldn't happen there.
Yes, it's just happened to the Polish Jews because they had pious and they had
Right, but it wouldn't happen to them.
It wouldn't happen to them. So anyway, then came 1944, April 1st, and we had to start wear the yellow star. They were talking about that they take us to forced labor or I remember when Ilon Kanini come down from Debrecen, from the city, and was trying to do something that we go to a forest and live there and cutting woods and working. They really was trying to work out something, but they didn't have people didn't put out money to do these things.
People wanted to do things, but no one would help.
No one would help. No one would put out the money.
What do you remember specifically?
I remember that my mother always with Ilon Kanini and with other people.
Who's Ilon Kanini?
Ilon Kanini, who's living in Queens now.
Yeah, what's your relation?
Yeah, she used to bring the news.
What's your relation?
She's my first cousin. My father and her father, Jakob Archie, was brothers. Yes, and she used to live in a city. Then really she used to come because her parents lived there. She used to come with the news all the time what's happening. Then in 1944, as I said, we had to wear the star. And
what kind of star?
The yellow star.
Where did you put this stuff?
On our coat and our
Who
clothes.
made
It
you?
was
Why
cold.
didn't you just not wear it? Who made you wear it?
You had to wear it. The
Why?
gendarmes, you had to wear it.
Who made you? Wear it?
They give it to us, and
Who
we had
gave
to
you?
wear it. The gendarmes. The gendarme is
Police?
like a police, but it's worse. You would get scared yourself if you would see it with a
Why?
big high hat with a feather in their head, and with the gun with the sharp bayonet. Yeah, they came with a force riding, and they drive through you if you didn't do what you want. So
What do you mean
what
drive-
could you
what do
do?
you-
Man wasn't home already.
What do you mean
Every
drive
all
through
the
you?
men was away,
What-
even the older men.
What do you mean
All
drive
the
through
young
you?
people.
What would
They
do?
would step on you with the horses, and
Yeah.
they stab you with the.
The gendarmes are worse with the Nazis.
They were worse with the Nazis, yeah. Yeah, and they talking that take us labor somewhere to work, and some people who say now, how come you don't fight back? How can you fight back when you had no men around? No, I told you before, no money was. People dig the money in the ground instead of helping others, and they were burning the money. In May, the Hungarian gendarme came and forced us out from our house. They said, everybody have to get out. And I said them, I could show you the picture. Joe made picture from our house. Still the vine yard is right there where the grapes grow. And I stayed there, and I said, I'm not going no place. Shoot me right here. And my mother said, come, Mikey, come. And was saying the Shema.
Mother said the Shema.
Yeah. And I still remember that Ignat's wife, Etu's name, we went from one house to another, pick up the other Jews, and they were marching us. And before, she was a very neat person. I still remember they had stove, and for Shabbos, when they don't use that stove, they used to cover it up with a beautiful embroidery, and she covered up everything like she went, like it was Yontev, it's beautiful. So now when I go away someplace, like I go to Mark or something, I want to leave the house clean. I always make sure that I'm not so clean the house, because I always remember that how clean was left the house that time, so I always remember.
Like a museum.
Yeah. And never went back, those people never came back. And anyway, my mother said, come my kid, God will help us, and said the Shema. I remember it was today, and so many times I dream about even today. They took us with the other Jewish women and children, old people, to Beretjovifal. As I told you, no young people was home. My brothers and all the young men was already in a forced labor. With a horse wagon to the marketplace. Everyone took a knapsack. We didn't know where they taken us. Though we'll be working we were working someplace, they put us on a train wagon, and we went to Nagyvárad, to a ghetto. And this was a vásártelep, like a big marketplace, on the cement, where they used to sell animals. So like sardines, we was packed in and sleeping in a stone floor. Whatever covers we took with us, we took our down covers with us. We took, because we don't know, it was still cold and we don't know where we go. That was our precious thing, so we took it with us, and our clothes what we had in a knapsack. Already they were treated us like animals in the ghetto. The Nagyvárad was Hungarian Nagyvárad. Romanian time it was called Oradea. And
Oradea.
Oradea, yeah.
Oradea Mare.
Um,
Nagyvárad.
a few older men they sent out to dig ditches by the borders in Nagyvárad. It wasn't too far. They asked for a girls go to help carry water, and to help the men to food and something like that, for the few older men who was there. And my mother begged me to go to work, to try to escape by the Romanian border, to go to Bucharest, because it wasn't far the border from there. And
why would you be better off in Bucharest?
because Bucharest,
Didn't
That part they
remain
didn't,
the left
that
of
was the main
remain on the
Romania.
left of the Jewish
And
people.
Romania didn't let the Jewish people go. That time this was still
They
a
were
good
working
thing.
there in the country
They,
that in left of
yeah,
the Germans.
they let them work they put them in forced labor, but they're not too away from, I mean they treated them like people in labor.
The Kennington left of.
Since that part they didn't allow the Jews to take into concentration camp, my father's older sister lived there. Her name was
Where?
in Bucharest. I saw her maybe one time when I was a child. And I went every day to carry water, but I was told my mother I cannot leave her, I'd rather die together. I just couldn't leave my mother. Every time I came back, every day my mother asked me why I came back, why didn't I escape? She gave me a babushka, that I dressed up like a peasant, and she asked me to be like a peasant and just walk over the border. I was very close to her. Whatever happened to her will happen to me. Every time I went back from work, she asked me, my kid, why didn't you walk away? Because we was right, I just walking distance from the border.
So why
I told my mother I'd rather die together with her. Whatever will happen to her, it happens to me. And in that labor, in that ghetto, I met my uncle Morris, my favorite uncle. He used to live in Nijwaard. He came back from the forced labor and looking for his family, and his family was taken away already. And they put him in forced labor, and I met him in there digging, and I was carrying water for him too. That was Sonny's father. And he also begged me to disappear by the border and show me where the border is, which way I should walk. And I said, no, I can't leave my mother. I want to be with my mother, whatever will happen to her. And life can't really, nothing without her. Not knowing what will happen. My mother already knew what was waiting for us. Then after a few weeks in the ghetto, she knew because she spoke German, and she understand.
What languages did she speak? German, Hungarian?
German, Hungarian, Yiddish.
How did she know so many?
German, because when she grew up, she had a nana.
Where did she grow up?
She had German woman was taking care of her.
Servant.
A servant, yeah. When she writes, I have her writing also is like German. That's how she knows.
So where did she grow up?
Huh?
She was
She
named
grew up in
Sternberg.
Margita, Sternberg. She
In
grew up
Margita.
in Margita, yeah.
And she was well educated.
Huh?
She was
Yeah,
well educated.
well educated, well read.
What kind of books did she read?
She used to like to read yokai, that's what I remember, yokai book. I think that it's like science fiction, because she used to tell me about the glass, the bending glass. That time it was a big thing. They didn't have it. Yokai wrote about that they'll have an airplane.
Yes.
And that time, I think I would call it science fiction, because that time they didn't have, when Yokai
Well, they
wrote
had
this
airplanes
book.
then. They had airplanes.
No, they didn't have airplane yet.
When he wrote it. Yeah.
When he wrote these books, they didn't have airplane. They didn't have the glass, what it was bending. And my mother used to tell. She used to read. They used to tell me. They used to always give one to another. Messages of mother also was very read and educated, and they used to talk about. Anyway, we didn't know what was waiting for us. Then after a few weeks in a ghetto, they packed us into a train, like animals without water, toilet. My uncle Jakob Ilankanen's father, he had sugar, he died.
He had diabetes.
Diabetes, yeah. He died right in a wagon with us in a few hours. I still remember the terrible shaking in a whistle.
What kind of work did you do when you were
And
there?
the people desperate air for air we didn't have, day and night, crying, praying, the terrible smell.
How long did it last?
The few days.
What kind of work? You said you did work every day there. What kind of work?
Well, I could get to that later.
No, before, not. Okay.
We didn't do no work. Oh, I was just carrying water
Oh,
for
just
the
carrying
men,
water.
drinking water. I went to the well and was carrying a big pitcher, not a low pitcher, a big heavy pitcher carrying it. The train was trying to we was trying to look on little holes where we going, on the little cracks. People screaming, hesitate. Finally stopped by the German, and the German opened the doors and yelling, "Raus, raus." And we marched. Some people was trying to take the knapsack. The Germans yelled, "Don't worry, you get it later." They selected one goes right and one goes left. People tried how to hold on to their children and the closest relatives. Came to my time trying to hold on to my dear mother. Anyukám, anyukám. I find myself picked up by my dear friend, the two sisters, Mezeica and Moni. Later I find out that I was separated for everyone from my dear mother. A person he was really human being, always helped others and everyone. They used to call him Baker and your, what call this, peace angel. In the family, if they had some trouble or some misunderstanding, she was always the one who was making peace in the family. Not in the immediate family, but in families. And if a beggar came, an oirach came, my mother always said, if somebody stretch out the hand, you always have to give something, whatever you have. And we really didn't have nothing, but the oirach always was sleeping in our house. And my mother used to warm up water, but it was a big thing, warm up water and make sure that he wash up. And the best food, always those little scrambled eggs. I always remember. I tried to make it, but I forget. She used to make the scrambled egg, came out like a rose. She used to mix it somehow. It came out like a beautiful rose, and she always made sure. And an oil came, the food looked good, and that it had
a guest came.
A guest
came, yeah.
Like a guest came to our house. We had rich people. I don't want to name them. We had people who had a lot of money and big houses.
They didn't have the
But they always came to our house.
They felt best over it.
Not the best. They had no place for some places. They always send them to Serena. And we used to have a family, Lazar, naming two old people. They were two sister widows. And always used to take care of these people. And by us they received
so
the
your mother
guests.
always took care of guests, and even if they didn't look good or didn't dress good, she didn't care
Yeah.
how they were dressed.
No. And sometimes they bring lies, but she always welcomed them. Well, I talk about it other time.
About what? Talk about
All right, about those things.
Well,
Going back to Auschwitz later.
What about your father? I mean, was he what?
Well, my father died when I was 12 years old. I don't remember much about my father. All I remember, he was sick all the time, and from pain, he used to go out in the backyard and singing from pain. He didn't want us to see him how he suffered, so he used to sing always these sad songs.
What kind of song?
The Hungarian songs, I don't know them. Oh, those melodies, sad melodies he used to sing all the time, because from pain he used to suffer, he used to have a lot of pain.
What kind of songs did you sing?
Well, I don't know. I used to know, maybe Jody.
Then?
Room?
Go ahead.
Going back to Auschwitz, later I find out my tooth was kicked out by Mengele, my front teeth, when when I wrote this, I thought that we were still living, and I really would in South America. This was This I wrote many years ago. I don't even remember. You know, it's for 10 years I couldn't after the war. So. But,
When did you write this?
many years ago. I really don't
This?
know when. This, yeah. I wrote this quite a few years ago. I don't know when. Long time ago. And that time I always was hoping that they get Mengele and I'll be able to go be a witness and maybe cut a piece of flesh from him. Anyway, Auschwitz, they marched us to a bathing place, shaved our hair all over the body, gave us a piece of soap and towel, and into the shower room. By that time, we heard sometimes instead of water, gas come out and we'll be killed. I personally didn't care already. Life was nothing for me. Many times tried to run to the electric wires and kill myself, but somehow these two sisters always had a lot of will, put in a lot of will to leave. And they told me all the time that must try to leave. I really have reason because two sisters, family in the USA, they didn't have nobody. Everybody knew that they knew it that I have a sister, two sisters in America and an uncle and aunt. So they said, you really have a reason to be alive because at least you will tell them you survive, you have somebody. We have nobody. If everybody gets killed, so they had nobody and no place. Nights was the worst in Auschwitz. The flames from the crematorium was lighted the whole sky and terrible screaming. We was packed in thousands in the barracks. Lager number 2. Like ants or herrings, one another. At night, like waves, we was also screamed and moved one side to another all together at the same time. And sometimes I think we felt with them when they were burned. Food, who needed it? Some beans all in the dish like animals, but without, all in one dish everybody was grabbing some beans or whatever you could get. But water was nowhere. We used to stay in line. We had to chill up here, they called it. And we used to wait for the rain to come. And if in case it was raining when we had to stay in line, then we kept our mouth open for water. Water was more important than food. If we had water, then you could survive. But without water, you can't survive. Every once in a while raining, we could open our mouth and have water. Every day, a few times, Mengele came, we had to stay in line naked. And someone had a red spot or something, he selected them, they just disappeared. They took them to burn. I was in Auschwitz about 1 week. Suddenly they selected us, my 2 friends, Itzo and Mani, made sure when we stayed in line, I was between them. So we should be always together. And this was a big thing in Auschwitz, that a sister and a brother and 2 sisters not staying together. Because this way they might separate it. But they always made sure I am between them, so they're gonna take care of me. And they really took a chance losing each other because of me. Again, we was taken to the bathhouse. I was sure we'll be gassed. Or surprise, we was really surprised. They give us a clean uniform, like a blue uniform, and wooden shoes. Took us to the train with guards, of course. We don't know where we was taken. About 100 of us, about 100 people. To our surprise, we was traveling not in an animal wagon, by train for days and nights. Sometimes the train stopped and served us tea. People bring us tea. We just couldn't get over it. We arrived at St. Petersburg that night, marching through the forest all night. We was whispering each other, how to kill ourselves, we were sure they taken us to the soldiers. You know, for mattresses, for the soldiers, because they dressed us so clean and they give us such a good food. And we figured they probably take us for the soldiers. Finally arrived by a big building. We going to meet other Jewish girls, prisoners. They tell us that they working in a factory, and we should not worry. Because it was like a big kashte, you know, it's like a big, what do you call it, like a kashte, what do you call it, you know, like a really big building, you know.
Factory.
Yeah, it wasn't a factory, they took over one of the big buildings somewhere.
Where?
In St. Petersburg. The from,
In Russia?
no, in that time not Russia, in Germany. This was really over Silesia. It's right now it's Poland, it's Germany.
So you felt relieved?
Yeah, the first time did we see a fork or a plate.
So when they told you,
from there
when they told you don't worry.
Yeah, this girl was. They told us that we shouldn't worry because they're gonna take us to work. To work in a factory.
What did they tell you? What did they tell you?
That we're gonna go to work in a factory. We was whispering them, we was telling them that what they do here, they use you for soldiers, because after that we was hearing stories like that. And it really happened. From the first time we did see a plate and fork, spoon, water and wash up. From there next day they took us to Langenbelow, where we was working in a munition factory making parts for bomb. We had to stay in a line for hours.
Did they train you? Or?
No training. No, we took us, and they made us stay in line for hours in the winter without a coat. We marched to work with a German woman guard. The dog, the German shepherd, was watching us, and you just stepped out a little bit from the line, and you said to the dog, "You there," and the dog would jump on you. So for years, when I moved here in America, everywhere where I saw a dog, I was really scared. And whatever I saw a dog, even today, I see a German Shepherd. I remember, you know, Auschwitz, or this. Sometimes was a 9 years old boy, not even a 9, 10 years old boy, and we was marching to work, and it just said to the dog, "You there." We stepped on, or we saw. In the fall time, we saw a green apple or something and bent down to pick it up. The dog would jump on me. Food, they give us soup, beans that left over from the German workers, guards. In a few days later, they didn't give it us right away. They gave it us for a few days later. It was staying in a steel can, you know, like a garbage
Spoiled.
can. Yeah, it was spoiled, nice and sour. Today I would die from it, poisoning, if I would eat things like that today. And people who got sick, they send them to Bergen-Belsen to gas them. Most girls was eating from a garbage, potato peels. I never was hungry enough. Luckily, I never was hungry enough there. I just didn't want to get typhus. Winter, we was living in a barracks, could see through of the barracks. It was like a long mountain. We was up like on a hill. A mountain was there, and it used to blow through, and we used to keep ourselves warm with our own breath. You know, we had a wool blanket, and we used to keep ourselves warm with our own breath.
The walls we had holes in them?
The wall was just a barrack, was from wood.
And the wind went through?
Yeah, there was no window or anything, just the wind was blowing through it. You picked out to see a mountain there, but it was very cold winter. This was in Poland, over Silesia at that time. And in a factory I was working very hard on a pressing machine, electric.
How many hours?
And had to
How
punch.
many hours?
I don't remember the time, from the morning till night. You know, in the pressing machine was oil and water. I still remember it was white, you know, from the oil and water of the mixture. And many times the SS was standing behind us with the stopwatch,
Mm-hmm.
the time watch. And meantime the machine was sure and shaking my whole body. I always was shaken, you know, from the electricity. It was sure the machine, but
Electrical short. You got a
yeah,
shock.
shock all the time. I was shocked. I got shocked. But if you complain, they would say you are sabotaging. So we was afraid to say something.
Only you have this problem, or other people?
Other
have the
people
problem?
had
Shock
problem
also?
too. When after we got free, then a lot of people had infection all the way to the heart. It almost was Meza Imani had it all the way, a blue line
From what?
from her hand.
Because
The
electricity?
sliver, electric and the sliver went into her bloodstream, and it was swollen up. Red line she had from the hand all the way to, you know. So almost the whole year I was shaken by the electric. When I was liberated, a hand was shaken like I would be 100 years old. My hand was like this. I couldn't hold a newspaper after I was free. I was going like that, my hand.
You couldn't read and you couldn't hold anything?
Yeah, like this.
How long did that
like
last?
this.
How long did that
I
last?
don't know, for a few years it was like that. Tell you the truth, I was 21 years old, but I felt like 100. This is the truth. I was old already in my life. That's why sometimes people tell you, you're getting old, you're in the time. When you get old, you have this, that. I had this already. I mean, I was old already. That's why I try to be young now, but I will be, you know, play with the kids and feel young whenever I feel good. I don't. And we also didn't work with gloves, so my hand was full with slivers, still, you know, from the sliver, and I had red lines all the way on running up to my arms, but somehow survived that too. Today a little still wool goes in my finger.
You feel it
For
hurts.
days I feel it, it bothers me until I get rid of it. I would get an infection. I never forget I had a black rubber apron, and the girls always told me when the guards wasn't there,
Right.
I should practice write down Eloni's address. But I remembered Haver Street, Brooklyn. I remembered every time I used to be there, you know, write it down with the.
Why did
because
they
the
tell
oil
you?
was white and
Why did they tell you to write it
to
down?
remember in case we will be freed.
Yeah.
Then I have to remember where my aunt was living.
And also
So
to
let
keep,
them
give
know.
you something to look forward to.
Probably that's why she was doing Mazay. So she was a very
Oh,
proud
you were
girl.
with her.
With her,
Your
yeah,
sister-
all
your
the way
sister.
together, and with her sister.
And they
Yeah.
both all came out.
We had other girls from Hansida, but they were really watching. The other girls was just busy watching their own food, that they should have enough food. But
What
they
could you
did,
expect? What could you expect from
yeah,
most people
well,
under
that
such
was, but from this
circumstances?
was unusual because they really.
Even under when they had all
Yeah.
that to worry about, they worried
That's
about
right.
you too.
So anyway, I always remember the Heather Street. Today I think.
Did I meet her? Did I meet her?
I don't know if you did. She was here visiting her.
Where do they live?
Until today, they live in Israel in
The neighborhood?
Bet.
Bethlehem?
No, but Givatayim.
Give it time.
Yeah,
No, I didn't think.
yeah. Until today, I'm still dreaming about all this experience.
I think I might have met her once. She, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you did. Yeah, many times. I think Daddy remembered. He used to wake me up all the time. Olga, stop. Because I used to scream for years. I mean, really, Daddy helped me.
I
a
remember
lot.
you crying.
Yeah, I
Unbelievable.
imagine. I got myself, when I wrote this down, I got myself together to write down some of my experience in my life for suffering. Many years I wouldn't write this down, even now.
When did you write
I
that
must
down?
leave out many things what myself have to believe that I and others went through.
What did you leave out?
I will think about it later. For many years I had guilty feeling why I stayed in life. That was my biggest problem after the war.
What?
For 5 years I couldn't smile. I had guilty feeling why I stayed alive.
Why?
Because why my mother, who was so religious and everything, how good, like my sister Ilush with a child, they were killed, and why did I stay alive? I had terrible guilty feelings for years. A good person like their mother, always was praying to God. As we heard from them, the last word my mother went when we were separated, she said the Shema. I heard her saying. They had to go that way. But now that I see, thank God, you might be some grown-up, decent human being and God loving and choosing life partner same. I come with that it was a reason to be survive. I am to survive. Thank to you, Father, you understand me all these years. We had hard time when I was hysterical. I know Leo remembered the most, and many times he would fight about who was bigger, who had a bigger piece of watermelon or something. Always reminded me how they fight for a piece of bread in Auschwitz.
I remember asking Daddy,
You
why
boys
is
got
Mommy
your
crying?
hairs pulled out. That's what it used to always tear me apart. And you kids used to fight. It's mine. It's yours is bigger. Mine is smaller. And you kids didn't know.
That's normal.
Because in Auschwitz, they always was fighting. That's my bread. That's bigger. You took my bread. I never did because I told you I never was hungry there. They had to force feed me. The first time we had the soup, I didn't write that down. The first time we get the soup in this work labor in Langenbelow. We arrived and they give us hot soup and give us plate.
Right.
And here I take a spoon, who saw a spoon, we eat like animals. And I didn't eat, instead of eating animals, I didn't want to eat life, didn't mean that one. And
So what
I
made
took
you
a
eat?
spoonful of soup
What made you
and
eat?
burned my tongue.
Yeah.
You know, they told me how good it is, maar ze zei, man, je oor gets aan. And I was eating this soup and burned my tongue down. I think I had blisters on it. Because for weeks I couldn't take nothing in my mouth. And they used to have a little potato they had. These two girls, they used to mash it up and put it in my mouth. When it's cooled off, I couldn't take nothing warm in my mouth for weeks. And right away we had to go to work.
This is where you're working. In St.
Yeah,
Petersburg.
working, not with Langenbelow.
Langenbelow.
Yeah. So every time you kids, when you was growing little kids, and Daddy said, you have a bigger piece, I have a watermelon, you got bigger piece. Everything, whatever I went, whatever happened, always used to remind me of Auschwitz.
And then I would ask Daddy,
And even the train for
why is
long
Mommy
time.
crying?
Yeah, you used to ask, you really suffered, I think, the most, because you used to ask why I'm crying, and Daddy really helped me a lot, you know. I really started to smile when we got married. Before, when I met Daddy, before, for about 5-6 years, I didn't know how to smile. That's why I didn't want to write that down. I used to have always sad face, somebody was smiling. I couldn't understand how could people smile whose mother, father was killed and sister, brothers was killed. Some people got over it right away. I don't want to name, but some people, a lot of people.
But then afterwards
They had a breakdown. And then in Bergen-Belsen, after 1945, when we went back there, I couldn't face life, it was very hard, and people was going to movie, and Joe was saying, come on to a movie. When he said, come on to a movie, I used to beat him up. Or was there
You
nice
didn't beat him
young
up, but you got mad.
Yeah, I got really mad. I used to hit people. I really did.
Who did you hit?
I wasn't normal after a while.
Who did you hit?
I hit Joe, or if a guy came over, was there from Czechoslovakia. They live now in Pittsburgh. And they used to want to talk to me. Then I used to, if they smiled or something, I just slap people like anything. I think I slapped Daddy a few times too.
Daddy, did Mommy slap you?
I did a few
Mommy
times.
slapped you?
Yeah, I used to, it was nothing for me to slap somebody. I just couldn't understand to be normal. It took me about 5 years till I became normal. Anyway, when I was in...
What do you mean becoming normal? You felt normal?
till I, you know, for me it was normal not to be, I couldn't understand how could somebody get over these things. And money and material things meant for me nothing, you know, wasn't
But
important.
what was important?
But anyway, in Bergen-Belsen, Joe couldn't take it already how I was because he wanted me to go. Most people went with boys, you know. I mean, I was 21 years old.
After the war.
This was after the war. Then I was very bitter, so Joe took me by the joint. Was working a lady from Margita. She knew my mother. Joe, Elonini wrote the address. First of all, Elonini wrote for me a letter. She said, how they treating you, if you have enough to eat. So I wrote for Elonini, yes, we have enough to eat. We have one day beans, but and one day potato. Beans and peas, but potato we don't have. Somehow by the Germans the potato was a big thing, they were shortage. This was after the war, but then, and instead of putting the food in the, and cooking it for us, they would give it to us, they give it to the Germans, and they used to get diamond. This is the truth. You know, the head of the lager who got money from the Jewish agency. So I wrote this for my Elanini, and Elanini was very bitter about it because they felt they give
All
a
this
lot of money in
going-
America,
Going to
and
refugees.
where is the money? How they treat us? So then he wrote us that we have relatives in France, and we should try to go to France because the quota system couldn't come here. And then he wrote this Rosie Schwartz, her name. She was a little bit younger than my mother, but she survived. Her children was killed, but she survived, and she was working for the Jewish agency.
Who was this now? Rose Schwartz?
Rose Schwartz.
She was a relative?
She was distant,
Yeah.
my grandmother's relative, some distant relative. And anyway, with Joe we went over. She was living not in Bergen-Belsen. The office was in Barry was there. No, I don't remember exactly the city. Near Bergen-Belsen, went to see her, and she was talking. She was a very bright lady. And
What did she say?
and she says, "Oh, Kitsam, you are young
What
yet."
language did she talk?
In Hungarian.
Yeah.
She says, "You are young. You have the future ahead of you." She says, "You're very young yet. You have the whole life ahead of you. And come on, I show you something what happening to people. And you are healthy, and just get yourself together. And God will help, and you will have children." I couldn't face anything like that. I couldn't even picture anything like that could happen to me. And she took me to a mental institution in Bergen-Belsen. All these, I was, you know,
Survivors.
all the survivors who was in the mental institution, and that time that's how they treated them. They went crazy. You know, they were tied down. And she said, "You wanna be like that? You wanna be burden for other people?
A burden.
A burden for other people? Or you get yourself together and look forward and start to have a normal life." And somehow these things, when she was talking to me and I saw those people, how they were tied down and was shaking the rope and everything and screaming like animals, I said to myself, I have to do something. You know, it went through in my head, it's really worked on me. And after that I started to be a little bit, you know,
Normal.
a little bit normal, not so much, but a little bit.
Well,
So
what made?
well, they had in Bergen-Belsen, they had like every week, they had like, was a big square, because this in Bergen-Belsen, the DP camp was where the German soldiers had their
Barracks.
barracks. This was regular building actually.
Yes.
And then they had these big squares. And every week they had, or once a month, they had like, they played shach from living men and women, you know. Chess, they played chess. So before I didn't go there to watch it. And then they had football games and I went.
You started living a more
I
normal life.
started to live in Celle, that's what the city, the closest city was
Right.
Celle. and I went with Joe there.
So Uncle Joe must have been happy that you started showing interest in others.
Yeah, and then I started to talk to boys already. It was a lot of nice religious boys came from Czechoslovakia. They already started to have like, you know, the groups. They had.
You're only 21.
Yeah, they already had like the Agudat. They had group, the Agudat and Mizrahi, and you know I started to be together.
Which groups did you join?
Huh?
Which groups did you join?
I don't know. It was the Mizrahi, not the Aguda. I think it was the Mizrahi what I was, and people were. I couldn't be such a bad look, and because the boys was going after me, but I didn't. I couldn't face things like that to get married. For what? You are here in a lager where he was. You know how we was sleeping there? With married couple came out from Poland, came out from. We all in like a school building, everything open. We was, you know.
One room.
One room, everybody. Like when they have a fire here and they put everybody together
How long
for one night. And that's how it was for 2 years. You know.
Did they put curtains between people or nothing?
Sometimes the married couples put a curtain. You know, they made it up.
Yeah.
You know, they made up a curtain from a sheet or something for privacy. And anyway, I saw this rosary a few times. Yeah, they had a lot of babies was born. I'm a quarter myself, or this boy who's in. I really should look him up. I have their name and address. Huh?
Quarter means.
The child was born. This couple came from Czechoslovakia, and we became very good friends. I mean, for thousands and thousands of people, I was really good friend with them. But with this couple, was very close, and she had a brother. She had a brother who was a little bit older with me, and he lives now in. I have cards from him.
From where?
After the war, he was right. I mean, he wrote for me to. When he went away to America because they were Czechoslovakia, to Frankfurt, he wrote me a card for my birthday, for my. And he was the quarter and I was the quarterino, how they call it. You know, I gave the baby and he was
the bris.
Bris, yeah, it was like a bris, but it was no, yeah.
It was no what?
I didn't socialize as much, but I started to go already, started to be a little bit normal. And then we went.
It's a good thing Uncle Joe was there because otherwise.
Oh yeah, otherwise I would be completely.
Because he cared about you.
It is much and everything.
For that?
Yeah.
Of course. But
yeah. But it's anyway from there. Then we was trying to go from Bergen-Belsen. They said from the English. We went to Bergen-Belsen because they said that the English zone, it's easier to come to America or you could go to France.
Right.
But France was very strict that time. They didn't want to take no refugees. You had to have really close relatives to go to France. They were very strict.
Yeah.
And then we decided that we're gonna go to the American zone. So then we went to.
Now where were you then? You were near
Bergen-Belsen, and then we went to.
Which is where now? East, west, east.
No, it's West Germany.
West Germany.
Yeah,
okay.
it's near Bremenhaven. Yeah, and then we went to Frankfurt.
Which is.
Not Frankfurt really. We went back to Frankfurt. No, that couldn't be. We went to a lager near München. I think.
Yeah.
And those things I really don't remember. Joe probably remembers better.
Well, I can.
No, from there we went to Frankfurt. No, we went to Frankfurt, and near Frankfurt we went to a lager. Wasn't Frankfurt because you had to have more money for that. We was in what do they call it? Bentheim. They call it Bentheim. The city near Frankfurt, and that's where we went in a lager, like a school building. That's where we was living. And I remember, it's a lot of couples already started.
You want to read the end part of that?
I don't have, I wrote it, and that's all I stopped it.
Did you read the end? Did you read to the end yet?
That was the end, I couldn't go any further.
Well, you can read the end.
Yeah, but no, it's nothing there anymore. No? Anyway, from there, and then we was there for a few years in Frankfurt.
Few years?
Sure, I was altogether 5 years in DP camp, doing nothing. I was lucky, I knew how to sew. I was just sitting like this all the time to worry about the quota system. When I came here, I couldn't even walk straight. I used to walk like this with my arm. So Zelda used to say, says, here a quota, there a quota, because that's how I used to sit. I used to walk like this on the street.
Can't see.
I used to like this. I used to walk like this. I didn't straighten out. And when I was sitting, I always used to sit like that. So Zelda always says, here a quota, there a quota, Hungarian quota, Romanian quota. Then when we was in Bentheim, Joe started to make papers, Czechoslovak paper, that we was born in Czechoslovakia.
You used to always to walk bent over like this.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. And then Joe was, people made
You want to show now how you walk?
Finished?
No, I want